If I asked you to stop for a moment and describe Avatar: The Last Airbender as a show, how would you do it? Presumably, if you have any taste, you would say something along the lines of, it's sweet, charming, has some really awesome action sequences, and memorable characters. But what I think stands the show out the most, and why it continues to have such a cultural relevance even nearly 2 decades after its original airing, is its surprising maturity. The Last Airbender is a kid's show, or so we're told. It aired on Nickelodeon, it's bright and colorful, it's animated, it follows the journey of a bunch of kids. Everything on the surface points to it being simple and easy to digest. But it's not. Not always. The deeper you get into the show, the more you realize that its message is profound. Its characters flawed and complex, and its themes are very often dark and mature. No episode encapsulates all these elements better than Book 2, Episode 7, Zuko Alone, which remains, in my opinion, the greatest singular episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Let's talk about why. As I mentioned, the false assumption you might make going into The Last Airbender is that it isn't going to have anything interesting to say. But Zuko Alone shows us a grey and morally complex world. The episode features Zuko, the banished prince of the Fire Nation, wandering into a rundown Earth Kingdom village. Right from the go, we get the sense that something is really off here. Now, until Book 2, the audience is given a largely two-dimensional impression of the world of Avatar. We have the evil imperialist Fire Nation who are seeking to subjugate the world. And then we have the underdog Water and Earth nations who are the righteous resistance, fighting for a free world. And then there's the air nomads who were victims of the Fire Nation's unique and singular cruelty. But Zuko Alone starts raising questions about all of that. As we get into the episode, we see that good and evil are not clearly defined. In this village, it's the Earthbenders who are the tyrants, using their powers for selfish gain. They bully and humiliate the townspeople, and yet ironically, they are shown to be cowards themselves. They were the people too scared to fight for their nation and instead chose to be the big fish in a small pond, ruling over the helpless and the weak, all while pretending to be heroes. It's disgusting behavior, and it's one of the first times that we see the Earth Nation as potentially corrupt and unlikable, a theme the show will go on to expand. It's also the first real time in the show that we start questioning if stopping the Fire Lord will really fix the world of Avatar, because it's pretty clear that it won't change the behavior of people like this. The Fire Nation isn't the only evil that needs solving in this world, and a message like that the world is grey and morally complex, is not one you expect from a children's TV show. But that's what makes The Last Airbender so memorable. Time and time again, we're asked to challenge our assumptions and appreciate the nuance of human beings. So many characters who should be the bad guys end up helping Team Avatar, and so many people you think would be good guys end up being selfish or even evil. And that's where the second great element of The Last Airbender shines through in this episode. Because amidst the tyranny of the Earthbenders, it's the Fire Prince who acts as the village's savior. I don't think I'm the only one who feels that the real hero of Avatar: The Last Airbender is Zuko. His growth and journey is something I've spoken about in a previous video, but the affection that Avatar fans have for him is why I feel confident in citing this as the greatest episode, when the vast majority of its main characters don't even show up in it. There are other incredible episodes too, like Tales of Ba Sing Se, The Beach, and of course Sozin's Comet, but this one for me takes the crown because of our prince. What I think really draws us as viewers towards Zuko is his flaws and mistakes, something we can all relate to. We start the show with him presented as the bad guy, the almost comically inept villain, appropriate for the hero of a kid's TV show to fight and beat. But as the show goes on, we realize that Zuko is as much of a victim as he is a perpetrator. He's a misguided young man in a broken world, and as he learns to navigate right and wrong, it is us, the audience, who learn and grow with him. We get two perfect examples of this in Zuko Alone. Firstly in a flashback, and then in the present day. In the flashback, we see once again that moral complexity. The princess of the Fire Nation, Zuko's mother Ursa, is surprisingly warm, tender, and nurturing. It's hard to believe that the big bad Fire Lord Ozai would ever even tolerate a person like this, let alone marry and, from what we gather in this episode, cherish her as he does. Showrunners Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko said they deliberately made sure to not include the letter Z in Ursa's name to distinguish her and her morals and beliefs from the rest of the Fire Nation royal family, who all do have a Z in their name. And we see that difference in how she is with her son. Ursa teaches Zuko about compassion and kindness, and we see this come through early on in the episode when Zuko considers stealing some food from passing travelers, but stops upon seeing that the wife is pregnant, no doubt reminding him of his own mother and how much she did to protect him, including sacrificing herself to save Zuko. But in this flashback, we also see the other side, the darkness that surrounds Zuko. Firstly, and most notably, in Azula, his biological sister inheriting the same genes and raised by the same mother, and yet she is a picture of cruelty, reveling in belittling and humiliating others, even her own friends. But it seems no one is immune to the corrupting influence of an environment like this. When the family receives a letter from Iroh, we see a version of him that is honestly very unlikable. He brags about tearing down the walls of Ba Sing Se, and then jokes that he might burn the entire place down.
If the city is as magnificent as its wall, Ba Sing Se must be something to behold. I hope you all may see it someday, if we don't burn it to the ground first.
We as the audience only know Iroh as a deeply kind and peaceful soul. There's a reason he's such a fan favorite. So it's interesting to get this picture of him from the before time, when he is someone we would barely recognize. What it shows us, I think, is that even the kindest soul can be misguided by an environment of hatred, like the one fostered in the royal palace of the Fire Nation. What breaks Iroh out of this cycle is probably what comes next. Word that his son Lu Ten has been killed in battle. While Zuko feels bad for his uncle's loss, Azula calls Iroh a coward and a quitter for abandoning his duty even if his son has died. Their father Ozai shares this lack of empathy and tries to use this as an opportunity to be crowned heir to the throne. But Zuko's grandfather Azulon is shocked that one of his sons could be so insensitive to the other, much like Zuko's mother is shocked by Azula's behavior.
What is wrong with that child?
This is the baggage that Zuko is wrestling with. Am I the prince of the Fire Nation? And if so, does that mean being a part of all of this? Or is it better to forsake all of that, forget who I am, and be someone else? So when we return to the present day, we're now given all this context with which to view Zuko's actions. Shaped by the world he was brought into, he's navigating the difficult questions of what is right and what is wrong. And yet, he consistently shows empathy. First, by protecting Lee, the child who almost gets him in trouble with the bully guards. This kindness is then returned, and he is taken in by Lee's family. He learns about Lee's brother, who is away at war, and when Lee steals his swords to play with at night, far from being angry, Zuko patiently teaches him how to defend himself, taking on the surrogate role of Big Brother instead. He protects the family over and over, and he even works with them. Here we start to get a picture of the warmth and innate kindness that human beings could show. But it's not long before we see the other side, because as Zuko is about to leave the town, Lee's mother arrives and begs him to save her son who has been kidnapped. And where a selfish and unfeeling person would have done nothing, Zuko again displays empathy and comes back to help. And it is here we meet our third element. Lots of shows have great action sequences, but what sets The Last Airbender apart is how it uses the elemental bending to really express each character's personality and emotional state. Airbenders are nimble and light-footed, opting to avoid direct confrontation, as is their belief, and you'll often see Aang parrying and redirecting more than you will see him go for a full front-on assault. Earthbenders, their opposite element, behave oppositionally, choosing to anchor themselves rather than move around too much. They confront head-on and attack with sheer overwhelming force and power. In this episode, we see that idea demonstrated perfectly. When Zuko goes to confront the guards who have captured Lee, he initially chooses to fight without his bending, knowing of course that a firebender would not be welcomed in a town where the Fire Nation is seen as the ultimate evil. While he's fighting with his twin blades, Zuko is graceful but timid. He's overpowered by that trademark earthbending style, and you can physically see that he's only really fighting at half strength, operating on the back foot and holding back, as if he was hiding his true capability. Of course, we know that he is. Knocked down, Zuko is forced to come to a moral dilemma. Continue fighting in a way that hides who he is, or embrace himself for his entire being. Flaws, evils, and all. In that moment, it's his mother's words that come to him again.
Remember this, Zuko. No matter how things may seem to change, never forget who you are.
Never forget who you are. And once he does that, you can see the eruption of power from inside him. The entire emotional range that Zuko feels comes through in the way he fights. Now angry and empowered, he easily dominates his opponent. And when he does, he proudly declares the following.
My name is Zuko, son of Ursa and Fire Lord Ozai, Prince of the Fire Nation and heir to the throne.
Here, at the conclusion of the episode, we see all of our elements come together. This should be a moment of triumph. And it is, and yet it's also a failure. Zuko wins, but the villagers immediately shun him. And here, we're shown the harsh truth of this world, and perhaps our own. The same people who were cheering for Zuko turn on him simply because he's from the Fire Nation. He fights for them. He protects and saves Lee, but he is the one portrayed as the villain. Zuko is able to accept himself as a whole and complex being, but the villagers are not. And once more, Zuko is left as he begins the episode alone. This is what the other characters in the show have to overcome as well. Their desires to judge each other for where they're from or what they once did. And instead, learn to just see people for who they are right now. All their flaws and all their truths. And that's how we as the audience end the episode too. Angry at an innocent Earth village and rooting for the Prince of the Fire Nation. Because what The Last Airbender does best is ask us to empathize, to forgive, to understand, and to learn to love, even when it seems most difficult. And it is Zuko who encapsulates this journey best. Never forget who you are. And by the end of the show, Zuko understands that being Prince is both a great honor and privilege, but also a burden that comes with it the sins of the Fire Nation, something he has to correct for the good of the world. And that's why this episode, to me, more than any other episode, displays the perfection of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Thank you for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, then please consider doing one of two things. Firstly, if you'd like to support the content directly, then you can do so via Patreon and get yourself rewards in turn, like your name in the credits seen here. This is where all the funding of the channel currently comes from. Secondly, please do share this video wherever you can, particularly social media like Reddit, so that the channel has a chance to grow and reach a wider audience. Also, go ahead and tell me in the comment section what you'd like to see me break down next. But that's it for now. Thank you for watching and have a great day.